Good morning, Mr. President, honorable members of this Assembly. Time is short, thought much longer, the walk even longer. So very quickly, I should begin by thanking my companions for showing me the monument to slavery, which indicates that we've all been preoccupied with this unpalatable, unsavory phenomenon that has engulfed the world for more than 4 centuries. I wish to begin by stating that realizing how short the time will be, I've taken the trouble to prepare very hurriedly the full version of what I'd like to say today. In fact, there are about 4 different versions. This one, which is entitled Sand Dune and Ocean Bed, the Quest for Reparatory Justice for a Global Atrocity, which is then summed up to some extent in the long version of this speech, of which only a small portion will be read to you. I wish to stress, however, 3 points in this tract. 1, everybody, I hope, is agreed that it is not yet over, by no means over. Slave markets thrive all over the African continent. I have here with me coming the special advisor to the president of my nation on diaspora matters, and the number of trips she's made to retrieve extant slaves from the African markets. I wish she had the opportunity to communicate those statistics to you. Even more critically, however, is the fact that there is a new form, difficult to detect in many areas of the continent, but one which we feel very powerfully a sinister development, which is the involvement of you and me as collaborators in the new form of slave trade and slavery, especially on the West African sub-region and in the East. And it takes the form of even a kind of gives a spurious credibility to the forebears of slave raiders, because at least they took some risks. Today, the new slavers simply wait for you and me to send our children to school, especially boarding schools, easy prey. They descend on them and cut them away, sequester them in the fastness of forests, and then call on us to come and ransom them. This happens almost on a daily basis. The name Chibok is familiar to all of you, but you have no idea how many Chiboks there are, especially in the West African sub-region. Second point is the rather convenient classification of slavery. Some forms of slavery are more benign, more humane than others, and therefore must not be talked about. Until we adopt a holistic, comprehensive, and egalitarian attitude to the phenomenon of slavery, I'm afraid it's going to be with us for a very long time. You know, the house slave versus the field slave, Indian Ocean slave, more benign than the Saharan, more sinister than the transatlantic. No, let us all agree that the phenomenon of slavery is contrary to humanity, and it has an egalitarian base, for the simple reason that the core of slavery is the robbery of human beings, races, communities, nations, of their right of volition. When they're owned by someone else, then there's a condition of slavery. Any human being owned by another is a slave, is enslaved. Very quickly, let me refer to a film, a recent, well, not so recent film, Django Unchained. I think that definition of slavery is captured by that moment when the actor DiCaprio takes one of his property by chain, squeezes her really cruelly and says, "This is my property. I can do with her what I like. Another episode was when this same character is prepared to forego, to lose some of his capital in the form of a fugitive slave by setting his bloodhounds to tear that slave to pieces, to indicate that, dead or alive, this thing, this object, even though it's walking on two legs, belongs to me. I can do what I like. And those forms of slavery still exist in many forms. We can only imagine what kind of existence the enslaved of Chibok, of Dapchi, have been undergoing since 300 pupils were removed from their school in Nigeria. This is a blot on universal conscience, and events like that demand a constant alertness and acceptance of a phenomenon for which the entire globe should be ashamed, since it's gone on for over half a millennium, especially in a quantitative, commercial manner. And so we come to the point of what can we demand of this assembly to tackle these varieties of, these variations on the theme of slavery, which I keep insisting is unified. Well, earlier I admitted my seeing the phenomenon, the monument created outside these premises to the memory of slavery as a reminder of the responsibilities of the global community. And so I'll just take it from there and say we need a monument or two like that, accessible virtually to the rest of the world. Hardly any part has not indulged in the slavery business. We need a different kind, not so static, dynamic culminating, however, in the symbolic form. Oh yes, there's a point which I forgot. I should mention that. It is impossible to quantify the appropriate reparation for such a global atrocity. We can only tackle it symbolically, gesturally, but propulsively also, so that it gives further meaning to the ambition of humanity to recover itself. So let's give up any idea of material reparations. Let's deal with it symbolically. And one of these ways, one of these symbolic activities we can engage in is to dynamize what already exists as static monuments to this global embarrassment. We call it the Heritage Voyage of Return. In visual terms, the concept is not too distant in orientation from those 19th and 20th century expositions, Berlin, London, Manchester, etc., in the West and other parts of the world. Expositions crammed full with the spoils of rape and pillage of others. This time, however, what is being proposed is a lived-in exposition as a moving remembrance monument, a transitional warehouse of a continent's past, present, and future, a vibrant statement on a continent's interrupted history. That's Africa, for the avoidance of doubt. Within this monument, a special honor gallery will house artifacts looted from African continent, but since returned under the spirit and ethos of restitution. Seminars, readings, Africa-themed films, documentaries, installations, clinics, and lifestyle parades, music from the African continent and diaspora. A unique library and manuscript collection, archaeological retrievals, an exhumed slave vessel. Pictures are there on the monument, for instance. The boat will take off when the diaspora make a call at representative ports of slavery connection, positive or negative, on its way to the West African coast and beyond, maybe around the Cape Good Hope to the east, and so on. Primarily for descendants of the enslaved, it is also open to others, that is, others who are equally embroiled in the quest for a new humanity that embraces, not excludes, that is curious, not foreclosed, that still lays claim to conscience as a touchstone of the rational species. The nature of reparatory justice that befits the magnitude of slavery wrongs can only be symbolic, as I said earlier, gestural. Yes, but also morally and therapeutically propulsive, one that goes to the core of a continent's humanity, vividly expressed in its arts and spirituality. It is a symbolic voyage of return, one that stands to become an annual fixture. Effectively, it offers no more than a continuation of UNESCO's work on the roots of enslaved peoples, beamed deservedly at the African continent. The Heritage Voyage of Return is a voyage of learning, leisure, and linkage. We call it the 3 L's. It is not only feasible, it is propulsive, it's imperative. Yes, we know such a voyage presumes to teach the world, to bring the world into confrontation with centuries of wrong and possibly a recovery of its own lost humanity. However, it is not designed, it's important, it's not designed to be a vessel of recriminations, but a floating vessel of peaceful options and neglected knowledge. Glorified tourism, perhaps, why not? But it is tourism with an attitude, as they say in this part of the world. This is a return, not just to a wronged continent, but a return of the world to its holistic potential, to what it can be, shorn of fixations, irrational concepts, embedded prejudice, lust for power and domination. It shall be manifested as a first furlong in a voyage towards, put simply, a reinsertion of human in that grossly depleted word, humanity. Thank you very much.